Right, welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast and welcome to another Sky Bet League One roundup on this Sunday morning, looking at 4 selected games from a tactical perspective, the statistics, the key players and what it means for these clubs going forward. Of course, we'll be looking at all of the other games, but 4 in real detail. Leave a like and subscribe on the road to 4,000 subscribers before Christmas. That would be absolutely incredible if we could hit that. That's all down to you. Hit the subscribe button, the red button just below me now. It's free, and that notification bell next to it will also notify you when I go live or do a recorded episode just like this one. It feels like a while since we've done a Sunday morning reflection, Sunday morning roundup, but it's good to be back. It really, really is. And I'm quite a happy bunny waking up today looking at the Oxford United score against Port Vale. And actually, that's where we're going to start. So, Oxford United 4, Port Vale 0 is how it finishes. And the XG for this game was 1.87 to Port Vale's 0.74. And by looking at the momentum graph here as well, and sometimes the XG and that graph can be quite misleading, but I felt that is quite a fair reflection on the game. I was really impressed by Oxford United yesterday. We put in, I'd say, our best performance of the season. Quite closely behind the one against Bolton Wanderers a couple of weeks ago, but we had to back up the draw against Fleetwood, the draw against Shrewsbury away from home, and of course Fleetwood at home as well last Tuesday, a couple of Tuesdays ago now. We played on Wednesday, it's a little bit messed around, isn't it? But ultimately we had to back up those 2 points with a win at home, and our home record this season hasn't been good enough, and Port Vale away from home have posed a lot of problems. You look at them at Pride Park against Derby County, they have been an issue, and I think we had to be very, very wary of that. Our players as well, they had a week's rest. I don't want to sound like a manager here, but it is a true fact, I'd say. Port Vale have had a week. We last played on Wednesday. We're now playing again on Saturday afternoon. I understand teams have played much worse, and it's not me looking for sympathy or anything like that. It's just really showing the fact that Oxford United had to put in a performance, and there were a couple of things that that we felt were against us. I think Oxford would have felt was against us as well. So that is a fact, and that is something that I would like to mention. But I also would say that, in a way, to go, right, we won 4-0 yesterday, and we played some really good stuff, and we were relentless, and we didn't just sort of play a style where, look, we could be a little bit tired, let's try and hold off. We went at Port Vale, and I think we knew that Port Vale weren't going to be scared to come at us, because they've got some really, really good I'd say bravery stats this season. For a newly promoted side to come up and play the way they have done away from home against some certain sides, it screams out as bravery, and that, I think, is, if anything, is a massive credit to Port Vale and the fact that we knew their threats and we knew the problems that they could cause if we weren't concentrated or we weren't on it, and we weren't tactically in the right frame of mind at every point in the game. And thankfully, Carl Robinson, and I don't want to get talking about the manager, but Carl Robinson, he's the manager of Oxford United, and he was the person on the touchline who ultimately prepared us and got us through a really, really good result. But the players as well, and we've got to touch on the players. You can see by looking at the average ratings there, 7.16 across the board. Every single player getting at least a 7 rating, and that just shows, I think, the sort of performance that we did put in yesterday. Some of those individuals, Billy Bodin, Matty Taylor, 2 experienced players that haven't been very good, or haven't been good enough, and haven't been reaching their standards this season, you'd say, really took this game by the scruff of the neck, and they drove Oxford United to this performance. And sometimes with experienced players who haven't been in great form, they have the ability to do that because they have the quality. And there's no doubt Billy Bodin and Matty Taylor do have that quality. They've shown it for Oxford United and for many other clubs across their career. But when there's question marks, when there's a little bit of criticism going into a game about team selection, about those 2 players starting in the match, they silence the critics, and that's exactly what we want you to do. Prove us wrong. Prove the fans or the people that, let's be honest, don't know best all the time. Prove us wrong, and they did that. I look at the back 4. I thought it was exceptional. Anderson is a maverick fullback. I got him from Lazio, which says a lot, doesn't it? He is a really exciting attacking fullback with pace, a sense of creativity as well. Maybe needs to work a little bit on positioning and awareness. He can go a little bit AWOL at times, but I think generally he could be the attacking fullback, and sort of the elbow formation that we're playing at the moment. Kieran Brown sort of playing as a quite deeper, not centre-half, he's playing a left-back, but more of a defensive left-back. More of a fullback, you'd say, in Football Manager terms. And then you've got Dejan Anderson, who's more of a wing-back, a bit more of a complete fullback, if, again, we continue on the Football Manager terms. But I think just generally Kieran Brown playing as that quite defensive fullback, and Dijon Anderson not scared to go forward and create things and put a ball in the penalty area, which I think we've been potentially missing in recent weeks. Somebody with a bit of width, because the pace of Billy Bodin and James Henry as our wide players isn't exceptional, but you've got Anderson behind Henry on that side, and they actually interchanged a couple of times with Marcus Brown coming out wide. We actually did that really, really well. I think we set up right to beat Port Vale yesterday, and look, it wasn't an unbelievable performance, but it was a very, very good one. And compared to what we've seen so far this season, I would say it's been the best performance of the season. I'm very proud and very impressed with what I saw. I look at the league table now, and that's how tight this league is. We're now up to 12 unbeaten in our last 5. 3 of those were draws, but now you back up those 2 draws, and they now look like, fairly good points. One on the road, once again in Fleetwood, who are a really good side on the road. So you sort of just go, right, Let's just keep going now. Let's go into the game. We've got Woking in the FA Cup on Wednesday, but then we've got Green Rovers at home the following week, and I'm going back for that game, which I'm really excited for, who are now bottom of the league, and you're expected to win that game. You're going to win that game, and then who knows, you just sort of have that optimism of looking up rather than looking down, and that at the moment is exactly what we want to see and what we want to feel as an Oxford United fan, and I imagine other clubs as well will be sort of in that similar boat. I look at Port Vale, they're now 15th in the league, and look, they have had a really good start to the season, and that, this shouldn't take away from the fact that they play or have played very, very well. Yesterday, they didn't really give themselves a good account of what they've done in previous weeks, hence why they were sort of 11th and 10th. If they won the game, they could have been definitely 11th or 10th, and that just shows, I think, the sort of side they are. And again, I come back to the word bravery and the belief in themselves to go, right, we're not going to come up to League One and play this sort of all men behind the ball, hit them on the counter-attack, soak up all the pressure. We're going to try and attack teams, we're going to play with quite a high line, press from the front, and play a threat at the back with quite high fullbacks. And that's what they did. Did they show that that's the sort of side that they have been this year, yesterday against Oxford? No. But sometimes you're going to get that, and especially when teams that get promoted, sometimes you just do get, I don't want to say blown away, that seems quite big-headed, even though I am an Oxford United fan and I wasn't playing, so I can say that as a fan, but you can get beaten fairly comfortably, and unfortunately for them yesterday, that was the case. Interestingly, they actually had more possession than Oxford, but it was only by 1% or so, and we did have 21 shots to 8 on target, and we did look in control. They had moments. Simonito pulled off some really good saves, and on another day, maybe Port Vale could make it 2-1, and it's a different game. But Oxford, we rolled a lot when we needed to, but we also took our chances when they came along. So really impressive, Oxford, and all eyes now on next weekend against Green Rovers, and can we get through the FA Cup in midweek? But yeah, something could be happening, but let's not go over the top. Let's just look up and hope and continue on the good run that we're sort of building at the moment. So, that's how it feels there at Oxford United. Let's go to Burton Albion next, because they were part of another thriller. Burton Albion not afraid to be part of thrillers this season, are they? 4-4 at the start of the season against Accrington Stanley, 3-3 yesterday against Charlton Athletic, and the XG of this game was 1.73 for Burton Albion to 0.77 for the away side and Ben Garner's Charlton. I'll run through that again because that's really quite interesting. I feel like I whizzed over that. Burton Albion 1.73 to Charlton 0.77. So Burton Albion, and again the graph does back up the XG, Burton took the game to Charlton. They took the game to Charlton. That has to be, there has to be a lot of credit to Burton for that. There has to be a lot of credit, and 3-3, they might feel as though they should have gone on and potentially won the game. But they were 2-0 down, 2 Charlie Kirk early goals, 26th minute and the 36th minute, 10 minutes between those 2 goals. But they looked in control up until that sort of 36th minute mark. 2 minutes later, it's 2-1. And just before half-time, Burton have equalised. But for a side that are still in the relegation zone, but now have, after that point that they would argue they could have got more, they're not out of the race. They're really not. It's only 18 games, and let's just keep going. If you put in that performance against a lot of sides this season, they'll be picking up points. Because they attacked in a ruthless mentality. I want to put something on the screen now of actually how compact they're playing in their average positions. They stuck quite tight. They played very compact. They tried to soak any sort of midfield quality out of the game. They tried to stop George Dobson and Scott Fraser from getting hold of the ball. They're the source to try and fire it out wide to Raksaki and Campbell. Stop the source, compact on that midfield, play quite narrow, play with quite a deep striker as well. And that's what they did. And it worked really, really well. They stopped Charlton from really, other than the first sort of 36 minutes, really going at them. You can see in that second half, you'd expect Charlton to be sort of coming out, and they did come out maybe the better side, Charlton, but other than that, after that spell where they didn't really score a goal, Actually, Burton came out and said, right, we're gonna have a go at this. They were 3-2 up at one point, and then of course Raksaki scored the 75th minute to make it 3-3, and of course Burton are disappointed, and Charlton come away going, right, at least we didn't lose the game. So what a fascinating game, and not many people would have expected that, and that's why I think League One is unpredictable, but is also anyone can beat anyone. It's so competitive, and Burton, although they didn't win today, they certainly put in a good performance, and would argue they maybe could have gone and got more than just a point. But if they put that performance level against the sides like Morecambe, for example, and I don't know, of course, I'm not going through their fixture list, but Morecambe, MK Dons at the moment, Accrington, arguably Cheltenham, but we'll come on to their game, potentially not now. Forest Green for sure, they'll win those games. They'll win those games. They could be even size higher up that they could seriously give a good game to, because Charlton as well, they have aspirations. They've got some really good players, and they've been in good form this season. And they'll feel as though this month for Charlton is massive. We spoke about it with Tom on the roundup. They've got a really quite exciting month for them where there's winnable games, and it started off with Burton, really, looking at league position. That's no disrespect to Burton, but it started off with Burton simply by looking at league position, and they weren't able to prevail. And Burton, they sort of smelt blood at times and went at them. Fair play to them. Really impressed by Burton. For Charlton, it's disappointing, but they do come away with a point each. And interesting game, really interesting. More drop points. That seems to be the theme of this weekend. Drop points everywhere. Top of the table, and also teams that are trying to get into that top six. I don't mind it though for Oxford. I don't mind it indeed, because we didn't drop points, and that's the main thing. It's not the main thing, but for me it is. Not in the roundups though. The roundups are purely neutral. Right, so MK Dons versus Derby County is next. MK Dons struggling. Paul Warne's Derby County are the opposition in front of them. An XG of 1.58 to Derby County's 0.84. So, again, another interesting picture, and one that XG does show that MK Dons weren't bad. They weren't bad, but Derby County were clinical. And Derby County, when they got their chance and when they came forward with the quality that they've got, they proved very, very clinical. And MK will come away frustrated because they did play some decent stuff at times. You can see the sort of opening first 20 minutes, they were on top, and then Derby had a spell. Didn't score, of course. Then MK Dons had a large spell, and then went 1-0 up through Louis Barry, but they couldn't keep hold of it for very long. 2 minutes later, the loanee from Brighton, Hayden Roberts, equalises, assisted by Hurahan. A bit of a mix there of past and present Premier League players that I think, Hayden Roberts probably got quite an exciting future at Brighton in the Premier League, but Hurahan, of course, played his part in that division. It's 1-1 at half-time, and from MK Dons, I do worry. I do worry, and I look at that XG again, although it is a positive XG, and that does show that there was an intention to be better in front of goal, and going forward they did look like a side with better chances. That does show the weakness of their defence as well. When Derby did come forward, pretty much every single time they had a chance, they scored. You can see they had 3 shots on target, Derby, and they won the game 3-1. It shows that they were clinical, but also MK Dons, from a defensive perspective, you can't be conceding every shot on target you have against you. And unfortunately for them yesterday, again, I'll be honest with you, I haven't watched the goal, so there could be a position where one of them wasn't a shot on target. But well, I mean, it would have been, wouldn't it? I'm just trying to think if maybe a set piece would count as a shot on target, but of course it would still do that. So you concede every shot on target, and things do look quite poor from an MK Dons perspective. Moving on into the second half, James Collins makes it 2-1, the experienced striker, and then it gets from bad to worse really for MK Dons, and then it goes to 3-1. My page is just refreshing for no reason there. It goes to 3-1, and it's Mendes Lang, I believe, who scored the third goal, I want to say. Yeah, it is, with about 10 minutes to go, and yeah, I do worry about MK Dons. I do worry about him. I think Liam Manning is finding himself in a position now where he is holding on to his job, and I'm interested to see if Liam Manning does last another week or so, because right now, and I like Liam Manning, I do. I think what he did with MK Dons last year was impressive. This year, though, I mean, there's a serious chance of them getting relegated, and that's not me being melodramatic or me sort of piling on a headline that isn't there. MK Dons are in a position, and all I've got to do is look at this league table to show you that. They are now 3 points adrift. They have got a game in hand, so they could equalise the points tally with Accrington. But you just do feel with results like this, where they were not bad, they dominated possession, they had more shots, but still lose the game 3-1. Maybe the scoreline doesn't really reflect what MK Dons did put in, and they weren't bad. but you're still losing games. You're still losing games, and it is a results-based business, and Liam Manning will know that. And there is a concern there. There is a concern. But Derby County sort of setting up how to expect them to, really, that sort of back five, and then that sort of stacked four with James Collins sort of playing as that hold-up striker. He knows that he can play as the hold-up striker and bag goals, but he can hold it up. He can play off Lewis Dobbin, who did really well against Accrington, but he's now in the lineup just playing on this left-hand side. Mendes Lang as well, a strong physical winger, sort of bursting down that right-hand side as well with pace and power. And again, I think Paul Ward now is really trying to gain a little bit of consistency with his side, but also sort of with his team selection. But you can look at it now. Derby, sixth in the league, into those playoff places. Bolton drop points, allows them to be in those playoff places, and now you sort of can start building and seeing exactly where they want to go. 28 points they're currently on. I mean, it is now 10 points away from Ipswich, and that's how crazy this league is. But just keep doing what you're doing, Derby County, under Paul Warren, and I think he's a manager that you can trust and that will get you out of a situation where, are we going to get promoted to? Right, there's a real chance of us getting out of this league now and getting back into the Championship. So fair play to them. Really good win. Was it their best performance of the season? No. Did they have to sort of sit tight at times? Potentially. But MK Dons is worrying. And Liam Manning, I imagine, is one worried man at the moment. Right, so Ipswich Town is where we go with our final detailed game, but don't forget we'll be looking through every single game and giving a bit of a reflection on that. Ipswich versus Cheltenham Town, and this is not the result many people would have predicted. XG-wise, the graph here, that's fairly predictable. It finishes with an XG of 2.74 to Cheltenham's 0.22. So Ipswich with a 2.74 XG to Cheltenham's 0.22. It finishes 1-1 at Portsmouth Road. You can see by looking at the graph here, domination, relentlessness, but not hitting the back of the net with about 26 shots. Was it 26? 29 shots. Only 4 on target from 29 is a concern. And I think we'll probably see a lot of this. We had 29 shots, and we absolutely fired shots or whatever from everywhere. But I think 4 on target is the problem. When you have 29, you need to be looking at getting at least 10 on target, and they didn't. They were 6 below that, only 4, and that's just a benchmark. I'm saying at least 10. There's not a rule if you get 10, you score more, but I'm just saying 4 from 29 isn't great, and look at the percentage of shots on target, which might show it here. It also might not. I mean, you can work it on your head. It's not very high, is it? It's not very high, and that for me is where they need to be much better. I mean, you can see the difference in passes. 657 passes to Cheltenham's 242. In terms of long balls, many more long balls. Really, 69 to 49 in total. Actually, Cheltenham with a better percentage of long balls or more out of it. 28%. I don't know why that's highlighted. It's not 37, but either way, they did have more long balls. Maybe that's why it's highlighted. And that just shows, really, the accuracy, 83% to 56% for pass accuracy. Cheltenham, look, they had to absolutely defend for their lives, and I imagine the pass accuracy comes from lumping out at times and just trying to clear play, and you can't blame them for it. You really, really can't. Luke Wolfenden makes it 1-0 after the 8th minute, and at that point, Cheltenham are thinking this could be a long afternoon. Going 1-0 down early doors, when I imagine the game plan was sit as many men as we can behind the ball, soak up the pressure, and hit on the break. You go 1-0 after 8 minutes away from home against a side like Ipswich, you're concerned. But Ryan Broom had other ideas. 34th minute, he makes it 1-1. And at that point, it's then just, right, now let's sit tight for as long as we can, soak up the pressure, defend for our lives, and just sort of understand they're going to have the majority of the ball, and they did at 74% possession. Understand they're going to have quite a few shots, which they did at 29. Blocked the living hell out of every single shot, which, Cheltenham did with 17 blocked shots. And understand you're not going to have many, and they didn't. 3 to about 1 shot on target. So, 15 corner kicks to 0. Fouls, actually, Ipswich had more fouls. Big chances, 2-1. They hit the woodwork twice. Counter-attacks, they had 1. 23 shots inside the box, 6 outside the box. 3 key saves for the goalkeeper. Absolutely quadrupling almost the passes. It was, well, not much, almost tripling the passes. But either way, look, it was very, very impressive for Cheltenham. And from a defensive perspective, from Ipswich, you can't argue they went for the game. They absolutely fired at them. But Freddie Ladapo, who I imagine didn't have the best of games, being that number 9, I'm looking at that average rating as well. I've seen a couple of things. 1 shot on target, maybe not actually. I did miss 1 big chance in the game. You can see his heat map there, always in that penalty area, trying to get on the end of chances. But unfortunately, they did come, but not really to the level that you'd expect them to be. But Bodin on the line for Cheltenham. That seems to be the message. And Ipswich, they feel as though they really did drop 2 points. Still second in the league. I mean, the lucky thing for Ipswich really is the fact that Plymouth didn't also win the game. Sorry, did also drop points and didn't win the game. So that sort of gap doesn't change. But then also on the other side of that, you're thinking Plymouth did drop points. If we'd have won the game, we'd only be 2 points off them. And that's where that sort of psychological perspective can change. As for Cheltenham, I mean, look, unbeaten in the last 3, and Wade Elliott, of course, is hanging on really quite tightly to his job. A lot of fans don't believe he's the right manager. Got knocked out of the FA Cup by the worst ranked side in that competition, and at home as well. Look, it's not great. You look at what they are in the league table at 19th. There's arguments to say that when Michael Duff took that football club, Wade Elliott is sort of dragging them back down to where they don't want to be, and he's sort of taking away from the quality that Michael Duff had brought into that club. And I think you have got to give him a little bit of time. He hasn't managed before, but again, you can't argue the fact there's frustration there, and that in the grand scheme of things, they have put in some pretty shoddy performances at times this year. But yesterday wasn't one of them. They weren't great. They weren't imagined the best side that Gypsies have played this season, but I think they did have to just really dig deep and stop a side who are high-flying with unbelievable talent in those forward areas. So fair play to the likes of Charlie Raglan, Sean Long and Freestone, and of course Luke Salford as well. But really, as a unit, they had to stick tight, so they should get credit really across that side. But for Ipswich, disappointing and definitely 2 points dropped. So looking around the grounds, Lincoln City 1, Plymouth Argyle 1, and Lincoln continuing their trend of going against the side, the top end of the table, in this case hosting the league leaders, and getting points. 1-1 against Argyle. And Plymouth, of course, they'll be frustrated. The fact that Ipswich dropped points, a lot of sides at the top end of that table did drop points, and of course, including themselves, they could have maybe ran away with that gap a little bit more. They have still got a 4-point cushion, but it could have been widened. It really, really could have done. But Lincoln, like I said, that they're not afraid to play the Sheffield Wednesdays, play the Barnsleys, play the Ipswiches, and get some points. And Argyle, now they're another victim of that. And Argyle, again, will have to sort of come away from this game going, look, it could have been worse. It could have been. But, of course, they wanted to win the game. And you actually see by looking at the graph, it was fairly equal and fairly open at times. Lincoln City did have their moments. You can see around that 50th to 70th minute mark, it's quite a big moment in the game. But Plymouth in that first half also did come forward, and that's where they scored. They scored with Adam Randall after the 31st minute, on that half an hour mark. And then just before half time, Sam Sanders makes it 1-1. And second half, no goals, but again, quite end-to-end and quite a good game from an attacking sense. Finishes Lincoln City 1, Plymouth Argyle 1. 13th in the league, it's now Lincoln City. Plymouth still top of the table with a 4 points cushion. Let's see what happens. But like I say, good point for Lincoln. And Argyle would argue, it could have been much worse. Forest Green Rovers losing against Wycombe Wanderers. I see Forest Green Rovers now bottom of the table. They do now fall to 24th. Disappointing, frustrating. It seems as though it's going to be quite a tedious campaign for Forest Green. And you look at the sort of the summer they had with a lot of change, losing their manager Edwards, losing some key players. Wilson, for example, Cadham, Adams, I could go on. That, when they might now be seeing the effects of that. They got beaten comfortably by Wycombe Wanderers 2-0. Arguably, sort of the last 20, 30 minutes of the game, Forest Green were on top, but Wycombe were 2-0 up at that point. They scored 2 early goals and they felt sort of in control at that point, and they weren't really worried about it. So Wycombe, they do what Wycombe do best, go away from home. I imagine keep it quite tight at times. You can see there wasn't really much going on for the middle part of the game. Keep it quite tight, allow them to sort of, have the ball. I presume they did have more possession, 61% possession for Forest Green, and I could predict that because Wycombe don't feel as though that's necessary, but have more shots and win the game 2-0 and just come out of that place with the 3 points and leave Forest Green feeling quite, I don't want to say hard done by, but feel as though they didn't really, they're bottom of the league and they didn't really give it the best of goes. So it does finish Wycombe 2-0. And that's a classic, got sort of Gareth Ainsworth type of performance from his side. Accrington Stanley 0, Sheffield Wednesday 1. Sheffield Wednesday certainly the better side. Accrington had their moments, but really Accrington allowed Sheffield Wednesday to sort of gain real rhythm in the game, and that can be quite dangerous. It could have been much more than just the one, but in those sort of circumstances, with sides like Ipswich and Plymouth dropping points, Sheffield Wednesday should probably just go, look, we could have played much better, we could have scored more goals, but we got away with 3 points that we can just travel home with a bit of happiness, and that should be the real mentality there. Sometimes the best sides don't play amazingly well and still get the 3 points, and that could be a fair example of what happened with Sheffield Wednesday yesterday. You can look at the stats, 18 shots, 5 on target, domination when it comes to possession. That they were better. They had a really good XG as well, much higher than their opposition, Accrington Stanley, who are in trouble, and they continue on a really bad run. But Sheffield Wednesday, they go to Accrington, could have played much better, and like I say, could have maybe bagged a couple more, but it finishes 1-0, and they'll come away thinking, at least we got the 3 points, unlike a couple of sides around us at that point in the table. Another game we could easily have spoken about, Exeter City 3, Peterborough United 2. What a comeback that was for Exeter in terms of the fact that they were down multiple times in the game. They went 1-0 up, but then 1-1. They went to 2-1 down, and they had to come back, and they had to really find a response. They did that. Sam Nombe 2-2, Giovanni Brown 3-2. 2 goals in the last 5 minutes of the game. And of course, it's Giovanni Brown, Sam Nombe, assisted by Jay Stansfield. That's the front three, and that's the attacking force of Exeter that have been so good for them this year, all combining to score 2 important goals to take the points off Peterborough United. I predicted 2-2. They went one better and 1-3. I had a feeling Peterborough would have to be at their best to get anything from this really quite special Exeter side this season, and I was right. I don't want to be the I told you so. We don't like them, do we? We don't like those type of people, but I told you. This game would be quite tight, and tighter than people would have thought. You can look at the league table and go, Peterborough, they're in good form, they're in the playoff places, and they still are. 3 games on the win, 3 games on the bounce, winning games. Exeter, where are they? 9th now, but before that, about 10th or 11th. Wow, things have changed, and how the tide have turned. I predicted 2-2. Sam Nombe, Giovanni Brown, and of course, Dieng as well, who scored the first goal. He can't be forgotten. Really good performance from them, and they continue putting in a fantastic debut season back in League One after their promotion last year. As for Morecambe, a really good point for them at home to Pompey. Portsmouth now continuing on quite a tedious, sort of tiresome run, really. That's the way I can describe it. It's frustrating, isn't it? You know, they're drawing games. I think they've drawn 3 games on the bounce now. They're actually unbeaten in the last 4, but they've drawn 1-1 against us. They drawn 1-1 against Shrewsbury, and now 1-1 against Morecambe. And really, those should be games which they should win, especially against this sort of side. You know, Morecambe, who are still in that relegation zone, haven't been good enough. We're bottom of the league for parts of this year as well. Brief parts, but for parts. They've lost 8 games from 18. They should be winning this type of fixture, and they weren't able to. They didn't lose the game, and Colby Bishop scored a good equalising goal in the 67th minute. They're 1-0 down at half-time. They're just lacking something at the moment, aren't they? They are lacking something, and there's a real sort of frustration. They did come forward. They did look like the better side, and they're sort of attacking thirds, but breaking a team down, going 1-0 down, needing to find a response, and going again, that for me is the downfall for Portsmouth and for Danny Cowley. 65% possession, but conceded more shots. They have more on target. Frustrating for Pompey. Really, really are. Still in that top 6 though, but they need to turn this sort of drawing run around and start putting some 3 points on the table in front of them. So Shrewsbury 0, Barnsley 1. Not an easy place to go, Shrewsbury, as we found out on Wednesday night, and really a lot of sides have also experienced this season. Shrewsbury, they're a bit of a dark force and a real dark horse, should I say. A mix of 2 puns there. They're a dark horse, and they really, really will prove like a really quite difficult opposition, home and away this year. But Barnsley, who weren't in great form, went there, they got the 1-0 win, and they're going to come away very, very pleased. And that's really the biggest summary, summary of the game. You can see both chances, and both sort of teams did have moments across the 90s. Shrewsbury trying to sort of scrape something out of the game in the last sort of 10 minutes, and the home side on top. But I didn't expect this. I thought about 1-1 going up, predicted 1-1. Barnsley not in great form coming to this game, now back-to-back wins. And like I say, not an easy place to go, but a really good win, and one where you go, we'll take that. That could be huge come the end of the season. Cambridge United 0, Bolton Wanderers 0. That won't be first on match of the day, hence why we didn't do that as a detailed breakdown. Bolton, Cambridge, similar really, not in the sense of league position and not in the sense of where they want to get to, but at the moment not in great form. That's where the similarity comes there. Cambridge, still sort of around, I want to say 18th in the table after that. Bolton now dropping out of that top 6. That's going to be frustrating. And Cambridge gave it a really good go. Bolton had moments, but generally Cambridge were on top for periods of that game. James Chafford with an average rating of 8.4 across that game. That does show maybe what sort of performance he put in, and what sort of performance that Bolton Wanderers as a team also put in as well. And finally, Bristol Rovers 2, Fleetwood 2. Bristol Rovers really on top for the game. You can see generally there's more green than there is blue, and Rovers will feel very, very Disappointed after conceding a goal in the 9th minute of injury time. Sean Rooney continues Fleetwood's really good run away from home. Scoring away from home, tick. Winning, getting points away from home. Not quite winning, but certainly drawing. A big tick there. And drawing is sort of the trend at Fleetwood at the moment, isn't it? They like a draw. They really do. Most draws in the league. And that continues after a really good point in the end against Bristol Rovers, who now haven't won a game in their last 4. A little bit concerning maybe Bristol Rovers. As for Fleetwood, unbeaten in their last 4, but it is another draw, bringing it up to 10 of the season. 10 draws after 18 games. They are draw central, and could be a little bit frustrated with the fact that they're not winning more games, but I can't really see they deserve to win that game. They got a little bit lucky, you'd say, right at the death, but they won't care, and a point's a point and a goal's a goal, and they'll just move on there. Very, very happy. And that does round up my League One, round up for Sky Bet League One. If you did enjoy it, please do leave a like and subscribe on the road to 4,000 subscribers before Christmas. Join the Discord server, of course, as well. League One chat, and also call-ins coming soon as well. Let's enjoy the rest of the weekend, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Take care.